Hi, and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin. Joining us today will be James from RT Egger, talking to us about the property mindset and the current market conditions. We'll then be joined by Gary Brown with his regular segment on wealth creation. And joining us is Robbie and Dean from Evo Built. We're going to be talking about architects and working together with builders. But first, we'll be hearing from Rory on Money Tips.
Hi, I'm here to help you keep more of your money in your bank account so you can choose what you spend your money on. So I'd like to give you a bit of a plan in which to use. So you're going to start with setting a goal, then we're going to move through and have a look at your budget and see where your money is going. Then we want to set a plan, and then very importantly, and this is a step that a lot of people forget, we want to review it. And then we want to go back through that cycle until you're in the financial place that you really want to be. So the first thing is to set a goal. You've got to have a goal for what you want to save for, what you want to spend your money on. Now it can be a massive big goal like saving a deposit for a house. It can be a smaller goal like buying that new jacket or going on that holiday. But it's really important to have something that lights you up inside. Something that when you're at the shop and you've got to make a decision about should I buy that cup of coffee or am I going to save for my goal, you choose to save for your goal. Or standing at JB Hi-Fi, are you going to actually buy that tally or are you going to keep saving for the goal? And so that goal has to be something that really lights you up inside, something that's going to get you excited and something that you're going to stick to. Thinking about what's going to make you truly happy in the long term, not just for short-term satisfaction. Once you can find that goal, once you can find the thing that lights you up inside, you know you're on the right path to achieving that goal.
James, welcome to the New Property Show.
Thanks
We've got, I guess we've got a real estate agent on here. We're normally talking new property. You've been in the industry for a while. I guess our audience wants to hear what's happening in the property market at the moment, buyer suburbs, property mindset. I'll let you lead.
Yeah.
What do you want to start with? What's happening?
Oh, look, I think right across Melbourne, at the moment, the market has sort of come back a little bit off the boil. I mean, compared to what we saw 2 years ago. Reasons being that during the lockdown periods, people weren't travelling, rates were low, people wanted to spend their money internally, so they were pulling the money out of the bank and buying properties and enjoying life. I think now with rates going up, inflation's up, obviously a war happening overseas, the game has changed a bit. People are a little bit more apprehensive now about spending up too much, and banks have gotten tighter with their lending. So I think people still want to buy property, but they're not buying it as easy or as comfortably as they were a year ago or 2 years ago. Our biggest problem right now is buyer serviceability. There's not enough stock to go around, especially in the markets that we work in, and we work along the eastern suburbs. But generally speaking, like I said, people are still buying, properties are still transacting, but buyers are coming in at the moment a little bit more cautiously.
So what sort of price range are you working with typically with your clients? In the, I guess, the new home industry, we're sort of working between that 5 to 900,000.
Yeah.
These more established suburbs, they're 1 million plus.
Yep.
What does a buyer need to sort of have up their sleeve before purchasing? And maybe a few tips also for selling. We always want to know that.
Sure. In our market, you mean?
Of course.
Okay. I guess entry level, for example, for an apartment, for argument's sake, let's start at the bottom, is about 600, 700,000. And when it comes to older homes that might need either extreme renovating or demolition, depending on where you're buying in the market, it could be anywhere from as low as 1.4 to 1.8 million, depending on which part of the eastern suburbs you're buying in. Right up to a luxury lifestyle home, you could be paying about $5 or $6 million in Templestowe, right up to 35 to 40 million in Toorak or Canterbury or Kew. So it depends on what you're buying, where you want to buy, and of course, what cash you have available.
Property mindset. We chatted about that earlier today. What are some keys to, accumulating wealth in property? Apart from having the money, what else is important?
You've got to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think you've got to have a plan right from the offset as to what is your goal, what are your objectives, what are you trying to achieve. I think buying property is a great investment, obviously, but it's only one class of investment. But I think if you sit down with a plan and an idea as to what it is you're trying to create, and have a long-term plan for that. Property is a long-term investment. I think the days of buying and flipping within 24 months are pretty much behind us. Understanding, what are you trying to do in the property market? You're looking for return, you're looking for capital gain, because sometimes you can go and invest somewhere else other than Victoria, e.g. Perth, and pay less for the property but get a higher return. So it really depends on what your overall goal is that you're trying to achieve.
And what about mentors, having the right team? Do you suggest watching the news? Do you watch? Are you watching rates? Are you attending events? What else should you do to build the team around you?
You mean as an investor?
As an investor.
I think getting the right advice is critically important. Understanding how the market works first and foremost. The news to a degree is good, but sometimes, and let's face it, the news does tend to deliver a lot of negativity, so that can scare people away sometimes. I try to advise my clients that take it from an agent who's in the front line of battle every day, meeting buyers every day. People are still wanting to buy. People are still wanting to sell. So I think understanding first and foremost your finances, speak to your accountant, understanding how contracts work, understand your terms, understand what you need in terms of a deposit. I think that's basically what you need initially, and understand the areas you're going to buy in. I think people sometimes take their Uncle Fred's advice and go and buy a property in an area because Uncle Fred said it was great to go and buy there, for example. But I think if you take the time to study the market, look at the results in that area, go back 2 or 3 years, look at what's currently for sale, understand the trends in that area, that'll give you better confidence before you go and buy.
And we spoke about earlier too, knockdown rebuilds and development. A couple of years ago, people buying at the premium price. There's a few people that aren't carrying through sales now. They're not doing development. But if you were looking for a development site, would you suggest, and you're flush with, I guess, income, would you suggest a 2-unit development, a 4-unit development, a 6s? What advice would you give to clients that are looking for large land purchases to knock down and rebuild?
I think it's always better doing multiple dwellings on a site rather than just 2. If you can get 3s and 4s and 5s, there's always a better return ultimately. I think if you're going to build one of 2, you can still do okay with it, but the developers who I talk to always aim to do at least 4, 5 or 6. That's where the real returns are. I think a lot of mum and dad developers right now who are getting into it for the first time will try their luck with 1 or 2 before they get into the bigger projects where there's 4 or 5 and 6s involved.
Great advice. Okay, let's ask a question for the seller. So they've had property for a while now, they're looking to get an agent. Should they stage a property? Should they be living in it? What do you need to do nowadays to be, I guess, seller ready before putting a property to market? And auctions still, are they still the way to sell, or would you believe off-market properties are the way to go?
I think when someone's getting ready to sell, the first question I ask is why. Why are you selling? What's the motivating factor behind your sale here today? Because getting an understanding as to what the client is trying to achieve helps us give them the right advice. I always say, let's diagnose before we can prescribe, yeah? So finding out what's motivating their sale, are they moving into state, are they upsizing, downsizing, is it separation, what's going on really behind the scenes for us to be able to guide them accordingly. Once they've made a decision as to why they want to sell, then it comes back down to timing. When do they want to sell? Because sometimes, as much as I can tell you as a seller, do it now, you might not be at the right time of your life to be able to do it. You could be waiting for the things to happen before you make that decision. So why and when? Then we've got to decide how you want to sell your home. You mentioned off-market sales. I don't believe off-market sales are the right way to go in these markets right now. Because again, the buyer pool has shrunk across most parts of Melbourne. And if you ask the right questions, why would you think or why would you suggest off-market sale? Again, when I was speaking to the buyer about the seller about that, there's usually a couple of reasons why they want to go off-market. One is either they don't believe they're going to get ultimately the price they're hoping for, so it could be a price-related issue. It could be just that they don't want their neighbours to know what's going on. So by asking the question, are you trying to obtain the best and highest possible price? It's hard to do that with an off-market sale. Buyers also believe perhaps sometimes there's something wrong with the house. It also removes the competitive element out of the sale. Remember, buyers only pay premium prices under competitive conditions. As a private sale, or I should say as an off-market, one, it's not being advertised, no one knows about it, only a handful of buyers know about it. Buyers are probably praying that you're off-market because they don't have to compete and pay a premium price. And in most cases, they will hit you with conditions on the contract, which can sometimes delay the sale, especially if there's finance clauses attached, building inspections attached, that can jeopardise the sale.
Fantastic. Great shares today. Last question. We have a lot of people that watch this show that are interested in property.
Yeah.
Do you believe being a real estate agent is probably one of the keys to wealth as well? Should you get into the industry?
As a real estate agent?
As a real estate agent.
Look, yes, I think it's a great industry. Providing you understand what's actually involved in the industry. I think a lot of people watch sometimes these programs that see, $1 Million Listing LA and all that sort of jazz. And sure, they're great programs to watch, showing beautiful aspirational property, but it's not a true reflection of what the industry is all about. It takes at least 3 or 4 years as an apprenticeship to build your contact base, to build your database, to build your contacts, if you like. And then if you do that correctly, then you'll reap the benefits out of it. I think a lot of guys and girls get into the game because they're misled by, I think, some bad leadership groups that draw them in, don't really give them the right training, the right mentoring, and help them understand thoroughly how long it does take to gain some kind of success. If you get into the right hands and under the right mentors, you'll have an amazing career going forward.
Beautiful. James, thanks for joining us on the New Property Show. Look
Pleasure.
forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So in today's segment, we're going to discuss buying an investment property under a company. Is that the right structure or is it not? But first, we have to talk about capital gains and the capital gains discount. So what is a capital gains discount? That is when we buy an investment asset, we hold it for more than 12 months, and we sell it. When we sell it, we're entitled to a 50% discount if we've got the structure under an individual or under a trust. And that means that a company is not eligible for the capital gains discount. That is really important because the Hatchway property is one that we buy for the sole purpose of making capital gains while it covers its investment costs, including the loan. So because of that, we're going to have tax implications from a capital gains perspective, but also from the net rent perspective. And under a company, we're going to lose out on the capital gains discount, but we will get the benefit of paying 30% tax on the net rental income. So with that all in mind, we've got to be really careful of the structure and get professional advice around which structure method is better between the company, trust, individual. But for a bonus for first-time property investors, one of the main questions that I get asked is about all the negatives of buying an investment property. For first-time property investors, my recommendation is you come up with a list of problems or challenges that you think may happen while having an investment property. And then what I recommend you do is speak to your real estate agent, accountant, mortgage broker, and go through that list of problems, those challenges, so you're more informed about the consequences of buying a property and also the opportunities of buying one. I'm Gary Brown. Keep learning and take control of your financial future.
Robbie and Dean, thank you for joining us on the New Property Show. You guys are from Evo Built. Do you want to talk to us about how that company's come about?
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Dean and I are cousins. We really naturally, sort of organically started the company. I got a project that I thought was quite large, so I called Dean in for a bit of assistance. He's got a big background of high-end residential, so yeah, called him in and got him on board. And yeah, next minute we put an apprentice on from Gumtree actually. His friend wanted a job, so he jumped on board. And yeah, spent the last sort of 4.5 years snowballing, and now we do custom high-end renovations, extensions, and new builds.
You're looking after a lot of southeast Victoria, is that right? You're down at Bayside as well. Are you working down towards Dandenong region? And I guess my main question would be: what's your ideal customer looking for now? Are they doing renovations? Are they people spending more time at home, or are they doing knockdown rebuilds?
Yeah, so we sort of target there's a bit of a triangle from Brighton area out to the Yarra Ranges, all the way down to Portsea. Anything in that. Don't mind travelling, but yeah, we try and target. The Bayside we do quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a bit of a trend coming now that because people want to move away from the city, you get a lot of high-end energy efficient homes that are built out in the rural areas as well, and they're quite stunning actually, with a lot of detail and just very architecturally designed. And if we have to travel to go that far to do something interesting, that's also an option for us, but try and keep it 40 k's within the Melbourne area.
So how do you visit your sites every week? Like who's spending time where?
Yeah, So I'm project manager, so I'll do my site visits early on in the week, and then I'll head into the office to see Robbie and Zoe, and we'll do our team planning, budgeting and scheduling for the week, and we generally have a lot of meetings with our clients and architects, and then come up with a game plan, and then Robbie's got the estimating and the sales side of it down from there.
Perfect. So talking about, I guess, architects, so a lot of people sometimes are, I guess, they're arriving with architecturally drawn designs and the pricing. How do you get that estimated, and when should the architect really should be, I guess, engaged, and when should you have the builder engaged?
As early as possible for the builder. The best sort of collaboration that we've figured is once you've got your plans, even if they're preliminary, come to your builder. you really want to try and knuckle down your builder straight away, so you can get a bit of a collaboration between builder, architect, interior designer, obviously the client and the building surveyor. So if you can all work together, it just makes the process a lot smoother.
Perfect. And we've been talking about a site off camera, which is Chelsea. So there's a project we're going to try and get out to. Do you want to sort of run us through that client brief and what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, sure. The clients actually came to us because they knew about us from doing the block for 2 seasons, and they were big fans of it. And we were happy to engage with them because they were very exciting and easy to deal with. So the existing house is currently there, and yeah, like you said, Steve, it's going to be knocked down and then rebuilt into a fairly high-end single-storey home. It's only a 3-bedroom, but it's got a lot of detail. It's got full ornamentation throughout the house. Basically, the client wants to be able to sit on his couch and control basically every facet that's electrical. It's got some nice external standing seam cladding, which is nice to see because it gives a very visually good look from the outside. And it's also a great area to work in because you get a lot of referrals that just keep on coming in, and it seems to be that that's kind of the money area, is the bay side of the city.
Do you pick up a lot of jobs from on site, like obviously just working out there, and then the neighbours come and knock on the door and check out what's happening?
Definitely.
Yeah.
In Edith Vale, sorry, we actually done, I think, 3 jobs on the one street. It was and within 2 or 3 houses from each other, and it was just referral after referral after referral, which is pretty good. So we find site signage is a big thing. Also our cars, we always have our cars stick it up quite nicely. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to advertise.
One of the big things that I guess I've noticed, I come from the volume sales industry, but one thing that was predominantly missing is the builder. Getting access to the site supervisor and being out on site. I guess customers need to have that, they still want that face-to-face experience. They want to be part of the changes that are going through there. Are you seeing, like, sometimes you're doing a build halfway through and then there's design, you're back to the drawing board and you're estimating again. What are some of the common issues that come up while you're doing a renovation or a build?
I think some of the big issues is the lack of education to the client. So that's why it's good to engage the builder, because we can actually educate them what's been drawn and what's been designed into their house. So if you come up with a solution halfway through, you can do variations obviously, but you want to try and shy away from it. Try and nail everything from the start and make sure the client's well educated and understands the whole build process. But I suppose one of the good things about us, Dean and I are both registered builders, so I can do all the estimating from the office side of things, and then the clients can obviously trust Dean being out on site because he's also a registered builder, so you get contact from both sides.
And how are you going with trades nowadays? So is it labour that's killing you, or is it the cost of labour, or is it the quality? One thing that I really want to bring up is really the standards that are, I guess, acceptable.
Absolutely.
Not just a minimum standard, but how do you guys separate yourself from another builder?
Yeah, well, we actually sat in with a builder's lunch the other day, and there was a guy from JG Gardner, so he does about 40 to 50 homes a year, and sort of the same space you're in, Steve, because he's doing new from the ground up and high volume. He has a good insight into the amount of leads that were coming through, the prices of trades, and he's estimating that, I think, Rob, it was in the next 9 months that as the workflow slows up a bit, there'll be more trades looking for work. So at the moment, you're right, it is fairly expensive for good quality contractors, but it's also expensive for not so good quality contractors. So you just got to be careful, make sure you have good relationships with your contractors that you've already got on board, and just make sure that you're operating to a quality standard that's going to keep everyone happy, and you're not going to have to go back to jobs and fix things up.
Definitely.
Okay, and I guess last question, are people building up, left, right, sideways? What's the common, is it land mass that's the issue nowadays, or people renovating up, or what are they asking for when they come for a renovation?
Depends on their budget, really. We had a client in Brighton, I believe he got knocked back from going up by town planning, so he actually went next door and bought his neighbour's house. So he approached us, and it was double brick through the centre. It was a dual lock, and our part of the project was to just knock through and turn that into one big residence. So yeah, it really depends on the budget, but a lot of people in the inner city do go up, obviously space awareness, but yeah, if you're out in the sticks and out in rural, I mean, they would rather go out if they've got the spare land. And
money's a funny one because people are looking at spending, from anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000, maybe potentially for their first new home. But that's out in a built-up area where it's going to be volume built. People are spending anywhere from $300,000 to $1 million just on a renovation. So it's crazy to look at that from one end of the scale to the other.
I guess a lot of people are sometimes considering they've been there for a long time, they've already bought that property maybe 20, 30 years ago at a good price, they're valuating the property. I guess the other thing I'd like to ask you guys is, do we have permission to come out and bring our cameras out and actually see you guys out on site and see what you do?
Absolutely. That'd be great to have you out
Love to
there.
have you.
Fantastic. Guys, I want to thank you for joining us on the New Property Show today, and we can't wait to be out on site with you.
No worries.
Thanks,
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers. All right, guys, thanks for joining us on the panel. Today's healthy debate is architects, builders, what can go right and wrong, and where should you start? Dino, go over to you. So we were discussing earlier, architects, have you ever had an issue where you've turned up on site, you've got some drawings and it's not quite right?
Definitely, Steve. I definitely have. And look, it comes down to the education process. We know that a lot of people go to university, study design and stuff like that, and because they don't have the hands-on experience to actually draw something and be on the site and build it themselves, which is fair enough. We don't expect them to, but sometimes you're right, things don't go together. They don't go as planned. And the collaboration between the relationship with a good builder and a good architect is very critical, because it makes the build process easier, and you sort of come across problems before they arise. You want your clients to have a good experience, especially if it's their first time, because that's, you get the referral sort of flowing on after that. So yeah, it's a very critical stage, the design and then the build. So we typically do see that sort of thing happening, but I think that's also the nature of the building industry. No matter how well you plan, there is going to be problems arise.
Do you think that's really because, I guess, clients already know what they want before they turn up, but I guess a builder's going to come out to site and sort of give an assessment. An architect, if you're dealing, and it really comes down to two different types of personalities. Gary, you deal with a lot of people. You've obviously come across, houses that are half completed before, that are halfway through. How do you problem solve? Like, you deal with the number side of it. Do you think the architect's at fault, or the builder, or where do you go with that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dilemma, because sometimes an architect may design a property in a way that's very expensive, and sometimes the clients come back and look at it and go, well, my budget was 700 grand, we've got to cut some stuff, and that's where a builder can come in and go, hang on a second, we can get the same finish, or we can get the same fundamental look, but we go back to the architect and tell them let's change a few things up. So I think when I look at this one and we look at the numbers, if there's cash flow problems, if we get a project that project started and there's massive cost blowouts, I think it's really important to have the builder and the architect work together to find those cost savings. And sometimes I just feel like the architects sometimes go a bit extreme on the types of wood, how much it's going to cost to build certain aspects of it. But again, I am an accountant, so I am very number related, and wood is wood. Just a different colour.
What about you, Jason?
I totally agree with that. It's very crucial for the builder and the architect to have a good relationship. Also have, weekly or every couple of weeks have a meeting with the client as well, just to touch base. But there are different methods, say like the old school screed method to the new pot and paver system for balconies. Yeah, you can save a lot of money. And you can also, even if you go to a building designer, you can save a lot of money as well instead of an architect.
I guess, how would you pick a builder to, the architect might be right, but the builder might not have the capability to actually finish the project off. So do you think sometimes they may say no to the architect with the design because they just don't know how to build it to standard? Does that come up?
Well, in my experience, it's sort of you get what you pay for in some instances. So if you're, depending on the price of the build that you're going for, if it's something that's sort of capped out at 500k, there's not really going to be much detail in it. A draftsman can draw it up, but if you're elevating something over $1 million, there's going to be recessed blinds. There's going to be a lot of things that need to be incorporated into the design of the build that need to be problem solved along the way, just to make sure you're getting the finish that you want.
So what about you, Rory? If you, at the moment, your current home, let's just call it somewhere in Melbourne, for safety reasons.
Sure.
No, somewhere in
Appreciate
Melbourne.
that.
What would if you were to do a renovation right now?
Sure.
Are you going up, down? Are you building a decking? Are you building an al fresco? Let's
Sure.
use a live example. What would you do?
We actually we did one a couple of years ago, where we sort of gutted the whole place really, and started from scratch. And we had, I think we were really lucky that we had the person designing it and the builder work together to get the outcome we wanted. And I think it's like anything, having the right professionals together to deliver the outcome you want is really important. We did our due diligence. We made sure that we had the right people who were going to deliver the right parts of the job. And when things weren't, the builder would come and say, look, this doesn't quite add up this way. It was a really quick change to alter the plans and to make it work with what we wanted. And now we're moving on to the outdoor area, so hopefully we can sort of replicate that. But it was a good experience with the builder and architect working closely together.
I think too, like really using an architect, really it's a set of instructions that says, look, you need to really know the width, length, depth, and you need to make sure that it's all covered. Architect's going to give you some of those designs, plus the new concept designs as well. So it's going to give you a set of rules that you're going to work within, and probably keeps your builder, I guess, quite honest in terms of pricing it out, because you need to price per square metre. But I guess it's a debate of where you start first. So I guess my question would be, do you go to the builder first and get their advice, or do you start and do you go to the architect? Which way would you guys go?
You go to the mortgage broker and see how much money you've got first. Mate. That would be that's where I'd start. But anyway, I'll hand over to the experts.
No, I do tend to agree with what you're saying there. You want to know your budget before you start your build.
Yeah.
And you want to be crystal clear with your architect that that's how much money you've got, if not be 5, maybe even 10% lower than that, to allow for potential variations. If it's a renovation extension, typically you're going to see variations, but if it's a new build, not so much. But yeah, I definitely agree with find out what your borrowing capacity is and be realistic with it as well, and work out what you can budget for. Or like we have people come to us that they already have the money and it's not an issue, but I think majority of people are looking to go to a bank or see a mortgage broker or
So get the money right.
finances. Yeah,
Get the money right, mate.
get the money right.
So what you're saying is speak to your accountant first,
Sorry.
and then speak to the mortgage broker, and then the other people.
Exactly. But like I said, it's about getting the right team together.
That's it. Well, the builder, we can't quote it until we have the plans, Plans and engineering, it's very important.
A builder, an architect, no, or walk into a bar. Only joking. Guys, it's a really healthy debate here. I think what I'd like to know next is really about the pricing escalation, but more about how do you pick the right builder and architect nowadays? Are you going through the websites or referrals? So Gary, you're in a business that's obviously highly connected. You refer outwards, but obviously knowing the numbers. But how do you build that team?
I think a referral is probably one of the best places to start for any professional builder, architect, designer, interior designer, whatever it may be. I think referrals are the most powerful part. And then social proof. So then what I would be looking at is going, okay, well, we've got EvoBuild here. Let's look at their social media, see what they're up to, see if they've been able to deliver on a project that that's similar to my project. I want social proof, but I also want it to come from a trusted source of a referral, like someone who's dealt with them.
What about you, Jace? How do you pick up your referrals?
Definitely word of mouth. It started to come through a lot, and if you're a client looking for a builder, you've got to go and visually see what they've done, because it might look good on the Instagram, but if you don't go there, you'll never know.
Agree with you wholeheartedly. Getting out on site. What about you, Rory? How would you go around about finding the right builder?
Yeah, it's got to be word of mouth. I think that's so important. Find who's worked well with that person before. There's that built-in accountability when you referred to someone, but then absolutely you've got to do your own due diligence. You go and look at the projects and make sure that this is the sort of project you want to do. Are they the right builder for you? And architect, because you're going to be around them for a while. You've got to get along with them too. So just because I work well with someone doesn't mean that someone else is going to.
Dino, how would you feel about a client wanting to come out, check out the quality of your work? Would you allow that or not?
We've actually had new clients come to us in the past where they've wanted to have walkthroughs of our live jobs, and even look at testimonials, or even just have a phone call with past clients to ask how are they to deal with and stuff like that. From a builder's point of view, if I was to go out and source another builder, which is a pretty good way of thinking about it, I'd want to see their past work, maybe a bit of a portfolio, whether it is social media or website. But I'd also like to see their headquarters, where they're operating out of. Do they have a support role for them, in the office that's taking the admin load off of them, so you know that you're going to get their full attention during the build?
I've seen that before. I said in the industry where you've actually looked up a company and you've got an address, and it's really just an empty factory or a co-working space or somewhere like that. And I'm not against working on the fly, but I think it's so important, I guess, to have a firm foundation. I think the other question you'd ask is how many years they've been in the business. I know you're fairly new to building anyway, but you're obviously, on the tools. But I think sometimes years count, 10 or 15 years worth of building knowledge, and an architect that's well educated and actually work with the builder is important. I think probably the most important thing is neither one of them win. It's finding an architect and a builder that work together. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we close?
Just be mindful of the time it's going to take to do the build, and how long the builder, if they say it's going to be a 6-month build or 12-month build, and what their contracts say.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it all the time where, unfortunately some builders overrun on time and on cost. So really trying to get as specific and granular as you can with that at the start is going to save you time and effort and energy in the end.
Mm. Look, I'd be mindful of, there's a lot of scary thoughts out there at the moment going around through the media and people talking on the streets, and it's kind of putting a bit of a hold on everything, not just the building industry but the whole economy. And typically your interest rates are still going up a little bit. It will start to fall, but basically the fixed price materials is a little bit like the price of fuel. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, once it inflates to a certain point, it never really goes back down. And I think people, once they start to realise that, they're going to get a bit more comfortable with what the cost of things are, and the building industry will just continue on from there.
Great point.
Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah, same with Dean. Ever since COVID, all the prices have risen. So, you just got to make sure if as a builder, if we're doing a fixed price, we've got to know how much stuff is going to cost.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the New Property Show. We'll see you guys again shortly. That's all for this week, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week.